Aloha, salutations. Welcome back into another Motor City Realists. We're back after a bye week. This is episode 5, and we are up and running with all of Lions, Red Wings, and Pistons now. Tigers are out. Thanks for joining us today. Mike, how you doing?
Good, man. Glad we didn't intentionally take the bye week off, but we said it was probably for the best.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as far as football goes, nothing really got any better.
Yes, we'll obviously talk about the Lions. We usually talk heavily about the Lions, but you know we're gonna talk, like you said, Pistons, Wings. But overall, I mean, and we always kind of touch base. How did things go? I know you went to opening night for the Tampa Bay Bolts, right?
Yeah, that was fun. I was talking to you a little bit about the fiasco before the show, how start time was a little messed up on the tickets. So got there a little bit after puck drop, which was a shame. But, yeah, it was good. They lost. They blew a 2-0 lead. But it was fun. It was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously for those just tuning in, I'm sorry, or following in previous, obviously Zach lives out in Tampa now, born and bred, you know, in the Michigan area. So that's why he and I have come together. But now he's out in Tampa, so he's inherited, you know, a little better sports organizations, at least at this point. You know, I'll say Tom Brady. We'll see what happens there, but excited to talk a little bit. We're going to start this week with the Red Wings. That's your bread and butter. You know, we'll talk a little bit about the Pistons, both young teams, a lot of up and coming talent. You know, granted, you know, we're just talking a little minute part of the season. But Zach, how you feeling about the start the Wings are on?
Obviously, you know, a hot start. I think, well, they're losing right now as we record, but only team to have not lost in regulation yet, which is a good sign. I saw that Derek Lalonde, a.k.a. Gru, a.k.a. the Penguin, is first Red Wings coach to start his tenure, I think, on a 5-game point streak. So that's good. Young guys are playing well. Elmer Soderblom, obviously the big giant, got 2 goals already in the young season. Larkin leading. Well, I think he's tied with Perron for goal scoring lead now because he scored today's goal.
One tonight, yeah.
Yeah, and Kubalik, the other new guy, up top the points. So a lot of good things happening, you know. And I don't know if you've been able to catch a game. I know you're in a weird spot there geography wise, but they're exciting too. Like last year, they were not an exciting team to watch, and they play some fun hockey now. So it's been a good start, at least.
And you talk about exciting, obviously. What is it? They're 3-0-2, I think, is what it is. Like you said, they pointed out. But you know, this kind of goes back. I think everybody that has followed the Wings, or even you know, hockey's not as greatly covered on the big networks. But we go back to that game a couple nights ago. Pretty much everybody's pretty much seen it, where Larkin pretty much saved that wide open net, and that
Yeah.
essentially, that checked that box. We got the point for that. And again, this is a very early in the season, but I mean, something like that. And I think I've said it in past. Is Larkin the guy? Is Larkin the guy that you sign long term to really be? I mean, he's the captain, but I mean, like that leader that you're going to really rely on. And again, this is very early, but I think plays like that, going above and beyond, and just, I mean, laying out, getting that point. I mean, what was your take from that? I mean, that was, I don't know if you were watching it live at the time. I saw it through Twitter and stuff like that, but I mean, awesome play. And everyone was like, "Oh, that's the play of the year." That was like what, the second or third game of the season.
Yeah.
But what was your take on that? I mean, obviously that checked that we got the point there.
Yeah, that kind of play to me solidifies why he's got the C on his chest, and kind of what you just talked about, where people are kind of wondering, is he the guy? And I think I even said a couple episodes back, there's still that question mark in the air. Can he lead a team to the cup? And that if there's ever a montage of highlights of his career down the line, that's going to be in there for sure. And it's going to be one of the best ones. Like you said, it earned us a point in that game. Saved the empty net. We go down. We score the game tying goal. We go to overtime. We lose in overtime, but we still get a point. And it's going to be a topic of discussion because his contract is up after this year. So, there's I know a lot of the talks is not about if, it's just about what's the money going to look like? Which I think there's no doubt. There's no doubt he re-signs in Detroit. But again, it's going to be how much money. But to me, that's why he's got the C on his chest. And doing it so early in the season, setting a tone is important. It's one thing to do something like that when your season's already gone and wasted, but now you're setting a tone for especially all these new guys and this new team, and you got a new coach who's looking for leadership, and just a huge play. It sucks because the next game we blow a lead to Chicago in the third period, and we give a point right back. But at least we got one from that play. I mean, that was a great play.
Are there any? I mean, obviously that's a bright spot there, but I mean, are there any players that maybe? And again, we're early in the season. We want to reiterate that because I know how Detroit fans can get when you talk early about players and stuff like that. Are there any guys that maybe stand out to you that Sodom out me? We talked about that have kind of, wow, you're like, man, I knew they were good, or they're really overperforming. I know Bertuzzi's out, what is it, like 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. But are there any players that have, I mean, from the start of the season, are just kind of filled in, that have kind of hit the ground running? I feel like, we've talked about our goalkeepers and stuff like that in past. That was always kind of a question mark. Are there any players that are kind of playing above their level, or kind of where you knew their ceiling was, but they're really coming out firing?
Yeah, you mentioned it when we were texting. I think after a couple games into the season, how the goaltending was looking, a lot sharper than we thought it might. I've been impressed with the way that the goaltending has been going. Aside from tonight, obviously it's not going too well. 4 goals through 2 periods right now, but Dominic Kubalik, I like, obviously leading the team in points. He's got the most points since Paul Coffey, I think, through the first 6 games for a Detroit Red Wing to start a season. So that's promising. David Perron's shot on the power play is going to be huge for us, because that's just another thing that we didn't really have in previous seasons, a power play threat that teams had to worry about, and they could kind of play more aggressively on the penalty kill and not get burned by it. And now they've got to at least respect Perron's shot there from like that Ovechkin Stamkos area, which is huge. And yeah, like you said, Bertuzzi's out for 4 to 6 weeks, so that's gonna hurt. We've also got Vrana in the player assistance program, so we obviously wish him well, whatever he's going through, and he's gonna be in that program for as long as he needs to be. So, but we're out those 2 guys, and Lucas Raymond hasn't been playing up to the potential that we think he should be playing after his rookie season last year. So, if he can kick that into gear, I think we could be a dangerous team. And then Bertuzzi comes back, and then if we do get Vrana back, I think we're just that much. The thing is that right now we're playing like a playoff team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, like you said, Detroit fans love to drink the Kool-Aid, so I'm not going to go out there and say that we are a playoff playoff team. It's early in the season. A lot of things can happen, but right now we are playing like a playoff team, and that's already a long ways from where we have been over the past few years.
And I meant to ask you this last week, and I totally forgot about it. Obviously, Bertuzzi's out for a little bit yet. Are there still the same travel regulations based off of unvaccinated players? And this is, I haven't been kept in the loop as far as his situation. I don't know. Do you know anything on that this year?
That is a good question. I actually don't know if there was an update to that because I think he was the only one, wasn't he? So it only really pertained to him. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up after the show. Actually,
I really don't know. I meant to ask that last week, but a player like that, and then we talk about we still have some. I mean, we talk about young talent. I mean, we've got 19, 20-year-olds on the roster, but I mean, we've even got. I'm not saying younger talent, but we've got talent in the AHL. I mean, we were talking just a little bit ago, about players that they have high hopes for, and we're in a situation, again, we're not lighting the world on fire. We're having a great start, but we don't need to rush these players along. And we've talked, I think, was it 2 episodes ago, we talked about, in the next 4 to 5 years, which team should be better. We said between the Lions and the Wings. And again, a very, very small sample size here, but we said, both of us agreed the Wings with the talent and everything like that, what's going on. And we're not saying fast forward 5 years, but I feel like this is just kind of like a, scratching the surface of kind of the talent that we have. It's a long season. There's a lot going on. I do see, do you feel like this is a team that all season long, it's going to be a bear of a season, but I mean, it's going to be like just a straight, a shootout all game long. It's just points. I mean, our defense really, we've got a lot of finesse. I feel like we talked about. We're not dumping running anymore. So do you feel like it's just going to be a lot of high scoring, even though our goalies have actually played pretty decent in pass? You think it's going to be a lot of high scoring affairs and very little defense?
To be honest, I hope so. I would rather watch 6-4, 5-3 games than the old 3-1 games that we've been so used to the past couple seasons. But it seems like to me that our offense has the potential to at least hang with games that turn into shootouts.
Going back to that game, that Larkin game that we talked about, I couldn't watch the game, but I was just following it on Twitter, and no more than we'd score, they'd score, and I'm like, and then I'm like, oh man, this is kind of gonna get away from us, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, but just following it through Twitter, not even seeing it live, I was like, man, kind of nervous. Like I'm like, man, like, are you kidding me? We're like, and then again, we talk about Twitter. We love our Detroit Twitter. I mean, we're part of that. We're Twitter. We're Detroit fans, but we don't get so in deep like some of these players. But it's just wild because the Pistons are losing right now, the Wings are losing right now. Both teams are losing fairly decent.
That's the difference, really, with this. That's a good point, because I think that's the biggest difference between this Red Wings team and the ones in the years of past, is that Larkin play that we talked about, where the back check on the empty net. In the past, I think Larkin would have been able to do it, right? But it wouldn't have mattered. We never would have scored the tying goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what makes this team different, is that they went down and then after that they scored the game tying goal. So that's the biggest difference in watching this team, I think. But you talked about the Pistons youth too. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, when we transition into this new age of basketball, with Kevin Durant, James Harden, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, they're all out, they're all retired, and they're all too old to hang anymore. The Pistons are going to be looking nice, I think. I mean, I don't think anyone's in a better position than the Grizzlies, but still, the Pistons are going to be, as far as the East goes.
Yeah, and I mean, just a quick update, we're down 85-72 right now to the Washington. But yeah, the way we've set the table, I don't think, I think Dern was kind of a trade. We didn't think he'd get a lot of minutes here and there, but that was a Memphis boy, wasn't it? Wasn't he?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I watched him, in Memphis, and he's always been that athletic freak, and he's had some impressive putbacks already.
I don't think they really had high expectations, just get a few minutes there. He's played well. Tonight he's got 13 minutes, but you got
18 years old, bro.
Bogdanovich is is pretty much the biggest, that we get with that last minute acquisition that we got. He's averaging
Yeah.
20. He's got 21 tonight. The big thing that I see, and again, this is through Twitter, is everyone loves Ivy. There's that explosiveness. He's been compared to Morant just based off of the explosiveness, not necessarily the dunks, the things that he's doing yet. But Cunningham, I think there's a lot of pressure on him, even though Detroit wants to win so bad. The fans that we talk about, you talk about with the Wings, okay, a guy comes in and has a great rookie season, and a second season, maybe he's not playing up to par, and it's like, man, there's a little more pressure. Where a lot of organizations, man, it takes them 3-4 years to get going, and here we are talking about, their second season, like, man, they need to go. It's kind of the same thing with Cunningham. Cunningham's got 15 points tonight. A lot of people are saying, he likes to facilitate and get people going, but he needs to get going. So
Yeah.
I know you're not a huge basketball guy, and obviously, thank God we don't have to talk about baseball for your sake in this episode. But I think those are the very real comparisons between the two teams. Like you said, there's tons of raw talent, tons of young talent. Detroit Lions, they've got talent, but I think there's the one thing that they're lacking, which is really weird because, granted, in Detroit, the Wings, they have a new head coach, at least for the Wings, but I feel like the coaching is a glaring weakness for the Lions, and we've kind of talked about that. And, I don't think this past week, which we'll touch on for the Lions, there was actually coaching issues. I think it was more individual players, but I think maybe that's the thing. Dwayne Casey maybe is not the best fit for the Detroit Pistons and stuff like that. He's an overall good coach. He had great years in Toronto and stuff like that. And we're talking about I totally forget his name for the Wings. Is this his first NHL gig, head coaching gig?
I think head coaching. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I thought, because he's come up, and I thought so. But I feel like there are a lot more seasoned coaches to deal with this young raw talent and be able to really utilize it how it needs to be.
For the Pistons.
Well, I mean, the Pistons and the Wings, even though he's just first head coaching, but he's come up the ranks through some really good coaching trees and some good teams.
Yeah, I think Lalone, I think technically, I said Lalonde earlier in the episode, but I think I heard on TV that he technically wants it pronounced Lalone. So Derek Lalone, I think Detroit's at that turning point. I mean, they have so much youth, but they also have these players who are ready to, like Larkin, and Bertuzzi, who are ready to become veterans. That I think he might be okay. Obviously, he's starting out well. We'll see how the season progresses. But like you said, I don't know much about the type of coach that Dwayne Casey is. I don't think they really ever had expectations for the Pistons, at least for the past few.
And again, I felt like, we had a good draft. So again, Detroit gets all excited. I think two people are going to take you to the championship. It's kind of the same thing with the Lions. The Lions have had good drafts, but there's so many glaring weaknesses where you're seeing what the Wings and the X factor. The X factor is what Ryan McCarthy jumping on here.
I knew he was going to.
He has to throw up a comment. 4-1 Devils, second intermission. We know Ryan, friend of the show. He was on last week. Talked to Jets. We'll talk about that as well. But I think there's with the Wings, the one feather in the cap, which everybody knows, but you kind of don't talk about it, is Stevie Y, man. I mean, this guy is brilliant, and I think you can't say it enough. I mean, he's assembled this team. He's got the young talent. I mean, the past couple drafts, have you been like right when draft was happening, were you like really, really happy with things? Where you're like, this guy's a stud, or you're like, okay, maybe I'll feel it out, see what these young kids, or were you just like, until you really knew these players, were you like, wow, we really hit a home run with these guys, or were you really following these guys?
Yeah, as far as like the NHL draft, you mean?
Yeah, NHL.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a trend that like Stevie loves the Swedes, right? So he's picking all these guys who are playing for, I shouldn't say all, but a handful of these guys are playing for the same team overseas. Yeah. So I don't know what kind of hand he's got in what pot with this team overseas, but he's basically like hiring this team to farm up his players that he's drafting, at a young age, and he trusts, I guess, this one team to develop players, and it seems to be working out. I think, I don't know if you remember the names, but like Casper and Wallander, and I think Casper was our first round pick last year, or I guess this most recent draft, and then we have Wallander, and then we have I think Niederbach might be on that same team. Or maybe he's in Grand Rapids now. But there's 3 guys because I look at their stats every day. These guys, they're playing in season right now, and they're putting up goals and assists every game, and it's I don't know. I need to look further into it, but I don't know how to say it. It's Rogle is the name of the team, Rogel or Rugel. I don't know how the European accent gets thrown in there, but that's the team that Stevie Y is getting all his guys from, and I don't know.
And do you know without putting you on the spot, because I don't know, does this go back to Tampa too? Like, was he picking those players, when he was there too? Kind of
that is a good question. I mean, because he built that. I don't think he was there when Stamkos was drafted, but all those guys that make Tampa good were drafted by Tampa. They built through the draft. Like it was Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Stamkos, Sergachev, Vasilevsky. I don't know how many of those guys Yzerman drafted, but that would be interesting to look into.
But yes, anyway, so obviously, like we said, the update's 4-1. Devils, second intermission. Still got a lot of hockey to play. Ryan McCarthy jumping in our comments here. The Wings can score, but we'll see what happens here. But moving on, we'll talk a little more Pistons again. As you know, Zach is the hockey guy. Zach and I can both talk about football. I'm probably a little more well versed on baseball. In basketball, I follow it. But this show is about Detroit sports, just the stuff we're passionate about. And there's a lot of tangibles, a lot of things that are very familiar. I mean, I guess very similar when you look at these teams, the way they're built, the young talent, the prospects, different things coming up. But again, I kind of go back to the head coaching. Right now we're down to the Wizards 87-77 right now, 10 points, about 10:45 left in the fourth. Again, Bogdanovich, he's got 21. I mean, we don't have a true, I don't think like a true big center when we're starting Isaiah Stewart, Bay, obviously Cunningham, Ivy, those guys, a lot of talent there. But overall, I think there was more expectations this year for the Lions than there were the Pistons. And I think most people would say that. But I think because Detroit Pistons hit on a lot of draft picks, there was a lot more hype around the Pistons. I think overall, Detroit fans going into every season are really feeling good. Hard Knocks gave us an all-time high for the Lions. The draft for the Pistons gave us an all-time high. Same thing with the Wings, a lot of talent. But I think more so with the Wings, we knew we had a good up-and-coming team, but we're still a few years off. So the start for the Wings is really something to kind of get around. I feel like, if you're a Detroit fan, you're a Detroit fan through and through for every sport. Whether you're casually watching the Wings, casually watching the Pistons, the Lions, it kind of trickles down. You kind of want to find one you really want to grasp onto. So I feel like a lot of people are gravitating towards the Wings, and it's like, are you one of those Lions fans that you're like, oh, I'm just waiting for the letdown. I'm waiting for the letdown. And we've seen them. They're young. They're giving up a lot of goals. They're scoring a lot of goals. There's a lot of, I think, to go to a game, I think that'd be exciting. I haven't been to Little Caesars. Have you gone to Little Caesars yet?
Yeah, one time I've been.
I haven't been there. Obviously, I went to the Joe late before they moved, but I want to get there. I guess real quick, I don't know year-wise. You don't have to tell me either, but roughly, what would you think? Where Tampa Bay plays in Little Caesar, is Tampa Bay Stadium, is that pretty old or is that relatively new?
Yes, I actually think that the Tampa Bay, somebody schooled me on this the other day here in the city because I guessed like a few years and somebody said that arena has been there since like 98 or something like that. And
so is it a pretty nice facility?
It's not, bro. That's the thing. It's like I should have known just because I walk through those halls all the time, right? I go to all those games, but it's pretty run down. Like you go to Little Caesars and it feels like a palace compared to Amalie Arena here in Tampa.
And they say like if you go to Little Caesars, like you literally like even if you went to a game and didn't watch any of the game and just walked around, you literally couldn't go into every room in that building because
Yeah,
there's
it's
just so much
huge.
going on.
It's huge.
I've never been. Is there like a nightclub and stuff like that in there or something like that?
Oh God, I don't know about all that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Some boom
I was
boom
there with
room
my
or something.
parents, man. I wasn't checking out no
Oh
nightclubs.
yeah, there you go. So, but anyway, so that's the not a lot to talk about at the Pistons right now as they're losing. Expectations on the season are down
Would you
11
say?
right now.
Would you think it's fair to say though that the Pistons had of the Detroit teams, they had the lowest expectations this year?
Yeah,
Right?
but I think quite frankly, based off the roster, and you talk about, it's funny you talked about Larkin being like a vet. You talk about, I think they have the second most vets as opposed to the Lions, and obviously the Tigers. But and we're talking vets that are in like their late 20s,
Yeah,
and so I think they're more of a seasoned team. Again, we've moved some people around in the Pistons. There's a lot of gelling they still have to do. There, you bring these new kids in,
absolutely.
and I feel like you go back to international hockey and stuff like that. I feel like they've always been like light years above us, but then it always comes down to like Canada and stuff like that differently. I feel like that's why Larkin being an American born, obviously a Michigan native, it's cool to see, but I always feel like those international players like start when like they don't even walk, they just start
Yeah,
skating. It's
yeah.
like I feel like they're always a leg up on us. So when you're finding that talent pool and streaming from, that's why I think the whole Larkin thing. I saw somebody tweet last night it says, what is it? It says Larkin is the best American born player currently in the NHL, and then someone else wrote underneath it said ever. I was like laughing. I was like, because there has been a lot of American talent, but it's few and far between based off of the international players.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like if I almost want to say that if you're American and you're in the NHL, like you're there because you're fast. Like that, you're never gonna have the handles or the footwork that the Europeans have. Like you said, they do that like before they're in a cradle.
Yeah, it's oh, there you go. I'm sorry, Ryan posted a comment there. It's pronounced Roglu.
Rogla. I'm reading that as Rogla, right?
Rogla.
Rogla.
Ryan's our resident hockey intern, so we
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
it,
Ryan.
Ryan.
Appreciate that. Rogla.
But no, yeah. So we'll get into while Ryan is in the comments. We had Ryan on 2 weeks ago, and basically that was after the who did we play? That was a horrible. The Patriots, right? That Zappa just roasted us. So we wanted to talk about teams as they're coming up. There was a lot of comparison between the Jets, the Lions, and how the Jets are kind of transcending, which you hate to see what happened to Breece Hall this past weekend, torn the ACL. They have a lot of momentum, but we had Ryan on the show, and it's funny because I meant to send you this, Zach. Ryan wrote an article, and one of the video players in the article that came up on the very bottom, it said Lions fans mad that the Jets are taking the next step and that they aren't. It was just like this was like literally after our episode. But yes, getting into Lions, kind of the bread and butter of the show, of the Twitter nation that we follow and stuff like that. One Pride. Another lackluster performance. I feel very much in past. There's been a lot of coaching issues, a lot of head scratching issues, but I feel like this loss was 100% on the players. I know you didn't have a chance to check in on this because you were busy, but I know you keep up with the box score and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I've defended Goff. I've said he's playing out of his mind. The past two games, he's with the Patriots and now the Cowboys, he hasn't. Granted, the Cowboys have an amazing defense, but I'm not going to say 2 weeks in I can't defend Goff anymore. But there's a lot of things going on. St. Brown went out with a concussion. Swift didn't even play. Now the Lions faithful are saying, should we trade Swift? Should we do this? And I'm like this is what happens week after week. It's just a snowball effect. Like maybe we get a win here and we right the ship. And I shouldn't even say right the ship because there is no righting the ship. We predicted 10. We predicted 9 wins. Now I'm with you, Zach. I think you said 2 weeks ago maybe we're doing a repeat of last season, 3 wins.
Yeah.
I think max we're looking at 4 wins. I think strength of schedule in the offseason, we had one of the easiest schedules. Now, based off of win percentage, we have one of the hardest schedules from here on out based off this year. I know you didn't watch the game, but what was your takeaway? Just kind of checking things. I know you scroll through the comments and stuff. What did you kind of take away from that game, and what are your thoughts?
My biggest thing is this is back-to-back games now without a touchdown after we were the highest scoring offense.
Yes.
So I know you're giving Goff some heat. We're gonna throw it at what's his name? Ben Johnson, right?
Ben Johnson
was doing killer, like we said, first few weeks. I don't know if Bill Belichick exposed us and Dallas just watched the tape and was like, "Yep, okay, now we know how to keep them out of the end zone." The interceptions obviously aren't good. I think let me throw this at you because I skimmed through an article today while I was at work. I was bored and I read some people talking about should the Lions take a shot at Mac Jones just because of the whole quarterback controversy in New England. They got Zappy in the wings, who at least the fans seem to like. Bill Belichick's got respect for Detroit, but probably would be willing to wheel and deal with Detroit. Mac Jones has still got, rookie contract left. Goff's turning the ball over left and right. Is this something that the Lions might be interested in? Curious if you would be interested in having Mac Jones at the helm. I know Brad Holmes, our GM, is hell-bent on building the team through the draft, so that would be kind of counterintuitive, especially since you've got some quarterbacks coming up through the draft pretty soon that if we're tanking, that we would have a pretty good shot at. But I just thought that was interesting. The article didn't really take one stance or the other. It was just kind of weighing the pros and cons and kind of said that they'd be better off without Jones. But just curious what your thoughts on that would be.
I mean, it's funny because I was in a group chat with there's a lot of Boston guys in the old belly up group chats, and actually Parker Ainsworth, he's a Texan guy, which actually Zappa is from Texas, I think originally, and so they always pull heavily for him. But needless to say, when that happened, I thought, God, man, I wouldn't mind a Mac Jones player. I don't feel like Patricia, and it's funny to go back to this, I feel like what the game that Patricia was calling for Mac Jones and Zappa were two totally different games. I think they were giving them, there's different rollouts, different reads, different things that he was giving to one player and not the other player. So it was kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, I would be all for it. But basically what it boils down to is, you're not going to pay a quarterback $31 million a year. I think Goff is like the third or fourth highest paid per year to sit the bench. I mean, he started the season. He's got that under his belt. The start of the season is the best offense, lit it up. Granted, he's had two eggs. I feel like very, very often, like Ben Johnson, he came into the league. He was a new guy. I feel like this goes to like pitchers and stuff like that. Like the first time through the rotation, if it's a young guy and he's dealing, like it takes a little bit for the hitters to really figure you out. So you look really good like the first few games or the first few times through, but then pitchers start to watch tape on you and they're like, okay, they're doing this, they're doing this. And I think it's kind of one of those things, the NFL's catching up to us, where I think that's what I think we really are not good at. We can't go in. I feel like, I mean, every week we're either leading by halftime or we're at least in the game, and then we come out of halftime. We make no adjustments. Our coaching staff is so young. I go back to that all the time. Again, this is not a 2-year thing. This is a process. They're committed to it. It's hard because I think people like Dan Campbell, but when you're losing, his oh gee golly go, his personality really can kind of rub you the wrong way. But then when you're winning, it's like, okay, so that's the Detroit persona, I guess. But I wouldn't mind a Mac Jones, like you said. That's a cheap contract, but no way they would. I mean, no way they would unload him to us for.
Yeah.
I mean, really anything. And like I said, they're committed to Goff. I'm really tired of seeing. I just don't see any way that they're going to draft a quarterback next year unless it's the late rounds. Like I just don't see it. You still got so much money wrapped up in Goff. He's young. They're going to play him. Now they're talking about, or not. I shouldn't say they are. The fans are talking about. Well, Swift is always hurt. Maybe we really need to draft a running back. I'm like. I feel like we're the most out of touch fan base in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
also not a part of all these other fan bases. So although I have seen Brown's Twitter, and that gets pretty bad.
It's funny because we've never, as a fan base, the Lions fan base has never experienced success. So it's funny to think that people would know what the recipe is for it. Like we've never seen it. We don't know what it is. But
We've run all the talent out of town that we possibly could have. So it's like, stop.
And it's
but,
really just like, it's frustrating that we talked about like our offense was there at the beginning, right? The first few weeks, and our defense couldn't match it. And then now we're getting stops, but our offense can't put the ball in the end zone. And we can't
if our defense could have even played like this when we started the season, we would have 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah. And then our offense played like it was. Now, who knows where we could be. It's just frustrating. We can't play a complete team game. And, part of that feels like it might be around coaching. I don't know. Maybe we just.
But let me ask you this. So obviously, all the feel goods coming out of season, Hard Knocks, everyone loved Detroit. We want 1-1 to start the season. We were sitting pretty. Had the best offense. Then we run into the Patriots. Okay, we need to regroup after the bye. If we lose that game, there's got to be changes. No changes made. We knew Dallas was going to be a hard game. One of the best defenses. Again, outside of the offense, not scoring. That I don't think it was a horrible game for the defense. Jeff Okudah is like.
I thought you were, bro. I was waiting for you to mention.
You want to talk about a player that, granted, rightfully so. A lot of people are talking about him, like finally earning his stripes after injury-plagued seasons. He's one of my Buckeyes. I know that hurts for people to hear, but I'm not saying those couple games make it all right, but I feel like, man, they're doing different things with him. He showed that. But what are your takes on some of these old players that played for this regime for Dan Campbell, or maybe didn't make the roster? And I mean the Tyrell Crosby. I know I sent you the tweet here. And you got her up. So basically, he's been very vocal. I think he ended up getting cut, and what it came down to is the training staff didn't diagnose him right. Is what he's saying. Didn't diagnose him right. Did more damage. Now he's got he's not in the league anymore. He's can't play. He's claiming this is more long term because we didn't do it. But basically, what he says is, you mean to tell me the coach whose entire personality is letting you know their caffeine intake and use a million words to say nothing coherent ain't it, especially when you have one of the best O-lines at your disposal. And then you talk about a player just getting roasted. And I went through and pretty much everybody just said, you're salty, dude. Because I think Tyrell Crosby, he was drafted. He was never a starter right off the rip. He came out of Oregon. And then he played some games, but he really hasn't played any football since. And I think, I like I said, I don't know what happened. Maybe an injury claim here or there, but I feel like he's one of the few players that has kind of really, really been outspoken. I feel like everybody else has kind of embraced Campbell in that coaching staff. We've talked about kind of the training staff, the strength and conditioning with a lot of our players getting hurt. Do you feel like he's kind of scratching the surface on something, or is he just kind of, using a losing start to the season to kind of pile it on?
Yeah, man. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know. When you sent this to me, you DM'd me this tweet. I had no idea who this guy was. Not a single clue. Haven't looked him up, so I still don't know. I don't even know when he was drafted. Don't know how old he is. But I did see him get ripped apart in the replies and the comments. People telling him he's just salty because he never could make it. Blah blah blah. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm not surprised. I never heard of this guy, so he probably didn't make it. I don't know, but I don't really know I don't understand what his angle is here. Like other than trying to stir the pot, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like looking through, and he even said it in his comments. He says, no, I'm good. He's like, I want this team to win. I want the fans to experience it. He goes, and I appreciate them essentially drafting me. So it is weird. Like I don't
Understand
get
the point.
outside of him being cut from the team. Like I don't understand, and it's not like we have insider information.
Maybe this is
But
why he was cut, bro. Maybe he's just a toxic person. I don't know.
I mean, and yeah, you never know, but I mean, pretty much just everybody lighting him up. But in a different note, so Detroit media. I don't know if you know much Detroit media or if you follow much Detroit media. There was something actually last night too. I think last night or 2 nights ago. There's I would say a newer company. I think like Joik Bell and a couple other players actually work there. Woodward Sports. So Woodward Sports is like it's like a homegrown kind of network that people are gravitating to, but they have some really really off base, almost like fans that are just like some of these guys. And I meant to send you the tweets because that's what I wanted to talk about was this guy. He's just like he's on a show and he gets just like so over the top, yelling, screaming, going crazy. I forget his name, Ahmed or something like that. But the Twitter was just roasting him. I'll have to see. But it's just like that's what I don't get. Like this fan base, like I get it. We're dying for something, for someone to be successful, for a team to win. Again, we're in the first 2 years of a 6-year potential rebuild based off a contract. Brad Holmes, I feel like every year we kind of miss out on our second round pick. Our second round picks kind of don't really do a whole lot. But I feel like we've hit, Pascal played the other night, or I mean on Sunday. And I saw some Lions fans say that in his first quarter he's already produced more than Michael Brockers ever did for the entire couple years that he's been with the Lions. So productivity is down for him. But overall, I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, we continue to talk about hard knocks and stuff like that. But I mean, expectations. I mean, do you think the expectations, like we said, for the Lions were the highest, then the Pistons, then the Wings are kind of down here, and the Wings are winning, so people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, there's a lot of young talent, but I mean, would you kind of gauge that as kind of where we expected things?
I think so. I mean, like you said, there's people drinking the Kool-Aid for the Lions with Hard Knocks and all that stuff. So maybe their expectations were a little inflated. It is nice to see the Red Wings winning games because we had this expectation, new coach, and we got some guys in free agency. If we would have started the season like 0-4-1, it would have been like, oh, shit, here we go. Another year of this in Detroit. But at least we got something to cheer about, and hopefully it keeps going. I don't know, man. And the Lions who do we got next? Isn't it Miami?
Yeah, Miami, which is another tall task.
Yeah, we're about to get wiped off that field.
Spoken like a true slappy Lions.
Bro, remember like the first 2 weeks we were making predictions like Lions are going to win. Now I'm scared to give them double-digit points.
No, it is very easy based off of the numbness that we felt for the past 20 years. And again, there's fans that have felt it for 50 years. And I love those fans because they're like, well, I felt it for 50 years. That's 30 more years than you're paying. Like, okay, dude, like either way,
Yeah, neither of us have seen it win. Like,
yeah, I understand. But I mean, so basically, before we get into our roundtable topic, quick, what we've talked about this with the with the Lions. I don't need like a record for the Wings, but do you think they are a end of the season? They're a playoff. I mean, even if they just make the playoffs, not saying they're going to go deep, but do you think they're a playoff team?
I'm gonna say they're gonna be fighting for a bubble. Like they're gonna be on the bubble with like 10 games to go. I wouldn't be surprised if they fell short of that bubble, but at the same time, Tampa has struggled to start, and to be honest, I don't know off the top of my head how well Boston's doing right now. But Florida didn't look like they were super strong either. So who knows, man? I mean, again, tough division, but
do you think there is a team that's just going to run away with these?
No, I would have thought that Toronto was going to, but They got beat by Vegas. They also lost to the Coyotes, so they just might be the same old Maple Leafs that they have been.
Speaking of Vegas, that team came in, they kind of lit the world on fire. In the sense that I feel like every year they're just kind of regressing, like worse and worse.
Yeah, they're going through some cap trouble.
Is that what it
They
is already?
Yeah, I think they spent a whole bunch of money being a contender right at the gate, and then now they're like having issues with contracts, and they're like barely fielding a competent team on the like as far as like line 3 and 4 go. I don't know.
But all right, well, a great hockey talk this episode. We always dive into football. Obviously, the past couple of weeks we took the bye week, we took the bye week off. Not a lot to talk about. Not a lot to talk about coming back from the bye week. We'll see what Miami brings us. But get into our last segment here. Kind of our roundtable. We just talk about anything in the news, anything in sports. We usually bring something to the table. Zach, anything just kind of burning, anything that you saw that you wanted to touch on, to bring up? We kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have anything burning that. Oh, I know what I could touch on, because I've been a LeBron fan ever since he's been in the league. I like LeBron, but they started 0-3. I don't know if they've played a fourth game since I checked, but they started 0-3. I don't know what's going to happen out there in LA. Obviously, Westbrook sucks. I've seen him airball so many shots. I don't know, man. It's LeBron's 20th year. He's obviously a absolute ridiculously athletic specimen of a human, doing this for 20 years at the level, and he's still putting up numbers. His team's not winning, but
getting 30, 40.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's to the point where I'm curious what his legacy is going to look like, because obviously we're much, much, much closer to the bookend of his career than we are.
Is this like in the middle? Do you feel like this is like a Brett Favre thing? Like early on, I mean, he was a gunslinger. He lit the world on fire. And, he had his runs, and then he just kind of bounced around towards the end, and it was just kind of irrelevant. And then he just kind of rode off into the sun.
Yeah, shit. It might be like, it's basically what Matt Ryan did. I mean, look at him. He's benched now. And we might be seeing Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers going down that path too. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be speaking of Tom Brady, I totally forgot. So that's one thing I can plug here. So over on the Belly Up Sports merch site, there is a T-shirt that Zach didn't necessarily design, but he came up with the concept.
Is that shirt live?
And he posted that thing on there. What's that?
Is that shirt live? Like we can buy that shirt?
Yes, I should have brought the picture up. We'll tweet it out later. But what do we do? X's and O's before O's or something like that?
Yep. X's and O's.
Basically, just him pledging his allegiance to the NFL, and in return getting divorced out of it. So overall, you're obviously in Tampa. What's the local media in Tampa saying about that team or Tom Brady?
It's not good. The team looks like a mess. The defense is embarrassing. People are basically embarrassed by the lack of effort that the defense is showing, and then, like Tom said, people just aren't executing on offense. I don't know. I don't know. You probably didn't catch any of that game against the Panthers, but
no, I did see. I mean, he had a bomb to wide open Mike Evans that dropped a touchdown,
like second play of the game, bro, and he drops it wide open. Would have been an easy touchdown. They don't score a touchdown after that. Like it was like as soon as that happened, the entire Buck sideline was like, nah,
just let all the air out.
Not worth it today. That's embarrassing, bro. For the people here, obviously, I don't care. I'm a Detroit fan.
Especially for a team that has struggled to find its identity offensively. Where I was watching the game and I go back to fantasy football. I got him as my fantasy quarterback, and it's like, man, he just doesn't get it done points wise, but he's throwing the ball 47 to 50 times a game.
Yeah.
And he's going to get you a few points just based off that alone, completions and yardage. But, he didn't get any touchdowns. So it's kind of crazy to see, but I mean, I don't necessarily see, is there that big of a drop off from last year to this year based off of his physical conditioning, different things, obviously there's a lot going on in his life that's playing out. So it'll be interesting, but before I go, I do want to talk about one thing, and this is totally out of spec, and you may not even follow this because I don't follow this at all. I heard it on the radio this morning. So I don't even know. Does he call himself Kanye West? Does he call himself Ye?
Yeah,
I don't know
yay.
who the guy is, but this dude is like off his rocker right now. Basically, he called out a bunch of Jews like not too long ago. And Adidas and them were kind of going back and forth. Well, he hired, I believe, Johnny Depp's lawyer to go after Adidas because they were having issues. Well, she just pretty much, can you fire a client? She just said, "Oh, I'm not going to represent you after this Jewish anti-Semitic whatever he kind of said the other day." And then Adidas says, "Hey, we're dropping you, and we're pretty much dropping you today, and we're writing you your last check today, and you're not getting any more from us." They pretty much just said, "Boom, production's done, everything is out there." So if I was a fly on the wall in this dude's like crib right now, like just knowing, what's going to happen, it's just going to be funny to see what happens, in the media. I feel like a guy. Yes, there's big money behind this Cheese Central. So if you want to start a Green Bay show, we'll get you on here. So, but lots of sponsorships, lots of viewers. So, if anybody kind of seen my change the script right there, we had a comment coming from YouTube. But yes, Kanye West. I don't know. I mean, how rich can you be? How off your rocker can you be? I mean, have you heard about any of this stuff that's going on?
No, man. I got some friends who are
Good
like
for you. No,
like
good for you. You
big.
haven't heard it. Thank God.
Yeah.
I had to listen to it on the radio, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, am I really surprised, like, at this kind of stuff? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've heard like he literally will like do like pop-up concerts or like sell out arenas, and he'll show up like 2 hours late.
Right. Man, money will do things to you, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and don't get me wrong. There's no, we don't see that kind of money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're seeing, some big money for the show, like that Chief Central just asked us.
Yeah.
But
Not enough to show up 2 hours
but
late though.
yes, we're always on time, even if it's a few minutes. But sometimes we're a little early. But either way, that's what I want to touch on. Zach, anything else you want to add before we head out?
Yeah, one quick thing because this Cheese Central guy popped in. This is that Green Bay education, bro. He doesn't even know how to spell paid. Look at that. I just have to throw some shade at Green Bay.
You just can't do that, man. He's gonna report and block us now in our ban. So, but anyways, before we head out of here, check us out. Obviously on Twitter, we're at Motor City Real, REAL. Find us on there. That's where we do a lot of our content. Follow us. We're building up a following. We're live every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time here on YouTube and Twitter. Check us out on YouTube. Jump in the comments, different things. But yeah, Zach, I'm glad we got through the bye. We endured another loss. We'll see what again Miami brings us, and we'll game plan from there.
Yeah, I'll take 15 more tackles out of Jeff Okuda. That'd be cool.
There you go. So, but anyways, on behalf of myself, Mike, and my co-host here, it's Zach Mack. Check us out. Find us on Twitter. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao, ciao.